Just 8 kilometers from the top of this major climb, the Porte de Payer. 5 miles, in fact. And the breakaway under pressure now. They're having real difficulty controlling the speed of Ruben Perez and Ahmet Jiruka from Euskaltel Euskadi. They've been doing all of the pacemaking for the last couple of kilometers, and the rest have been following as best they can. This is their playground now. They've suffered for 2 weeks in the Tour de France. Now they're turning the tables.
Well, this is the domain that they really enjoy. They were getting to the steeper part of the climb at 8.8% and 7%, and that's where the big Spanish climbers really come into their own. Once the gradient starts to bite in a fraction, David Miller is sacrificing his personal chances here this afternoon for Iban Mayo. Just in second position there. Watch out for this young man, Juan Jose Cobo. I reckon he's a serious tip for the future. And, of course, David de la Fuente bouncing around just behind David Miller.
Well, notice the yellow bandages there. Elise is conscious of his team colours. He's put yellow bandages around his elbows. He has suffered since the Alps with this skin allergy, which really has been most unpleasant. And because you can't use the creams that will probably cure the problem because of infringing the dope instructions, then he's not really been able to solve the problem. His only good thing is the hot sun has left us, so hopefully the allergy is cooling down a little bit. And this is the end of Ekman here.
Well, Fabian Wegman has been battling to stay in contact, but I think even he knew that the writing was on the wall as far as he was concerned, and he's decided to call it a day and ride at his own tempo. Riding very proudly, though, in the jersey of national champion of Germany.
Face it, David Miller here, the Scot who really has ridden so well for his team in this event. Rumours are he's leaving the team next year and going over to an American team, which will in turn hope to get a place in the Tour de France next year. And Miller will, there's even a rumour in today's papers, Axel Merckx has been asked not to retire and to also join this American team next year, which would really strengthen the squad.
Well, I tell you what, you've got to love the Tour because it really is the rumour box. There's a new story every day coming clear, and I think it would be great to see Axel Merckx pass on some of his advice and some of his experience to some of the younger riders. The philosophy about the team. Now, this is a big surprise because we're looking here at Felix Cardenas, who a couple of years ago won himself a stage in the Pyrenees to the Plateau de Bonastre. I don't think that's going to happen today.
You don't expect to see climbers of his quality, former king of the mountains in the Tour of Spain, to be dangling off the back, but it is. And this is Burkhardt too. A lot of support for him on the last climb today.
Well, I did tell him a couple of days ago that that wasn't a great move riding in between the breakaway and the main field, because every little bit of energy you waste is energy you might need on another day, and I think he could have done with that this afternoon.
Well, they're splitting up, and I didn't expect some of those names to drop back. I also saw Anthony Charteau, the winner of the Tour de Langkawi, slipping back to Freddie Agricole, rider in that green jersey. These are the leaders. They cannot contain the riders from Euskaltel Euskadi today because they're being drawn like a magnet to where they live. And now this is Perez who's gone now. Jiruka tried it. Perez has now moved off to see if he can make any progress.
Well, these guys know that when they get to the Plateau de Bay, the slopes of the climb will be orange, with orange T-shirts supporting the team, which is regarded as being the Basque team, and they are riding into not too far away from the Basque land.
All of the riders in the top of the classification, they're still based in that big pack, which is thinned out dramatically, but they're sitting there near the front, behind the riders in the yellow jerseys who are setting the pace. Nobody has made an aggressive move from the peloton yet.
David Miller sitting at the front end of the group. Just behind him, David de la Fuente, and another rider, casualty at the back of this hard pace, Marcus Foten. Best young rider in the Tour de France last year for an awful long time. Finished second in that competition. Moving forward, other riders disappearing. This is Juan Jose Cobo. Now, that's a surprise to see him dropping away because I expected a high finish on from him this afternoon. Another rider dropping back from Sonia Duval, Iker Kamano, his work done. And also dropping back there is Vladimir Gusev. Now, surprising, but he was a rider who crashed yesterday. So looking down here at the man who leads the race at the moment, this is Ruben Perez. He's in front of a four-man group. The riders of the early breakaway, which are now starting to splinter on the massive climb here of the Porte de Payer. These are the riders just behind them. The main field is now at 4.5 minutes. But you can see this is really starting to become the steepest part of this climb, Phil. The breakaway group has split up, the lead group.
as we expected. And that was a steep corner, that one. And it's going to kick again here now. Barredo is off the back with Gutierrez. And just look at this now. The two Euskaltel boys have got together. Collum is surprising me. He looked pretty tired early on. He's still going forward with the two riders from Euskaltel Euskadi.
Well, it's interesting how you go through different phases on a climb, and that's all to do with the variance of the gradient. I think Chiruka, the young rider on the front left-hand side there with the red jersey, the red number, as the most aggressive rider of a couple of days ago. His stop-start performance is just a real reflection of the kind of climber that he is. He can respond to the different gradients. He maybe doesn't yet have the power required to ride strongly on the easier gradients, but once it tilts up, his light weight gives him the advantage.
Tell you what, Paul, the way he's riding, he might be the first rider this year to keep his red number for another day, because nobody's repeated the feat 2 days running yet, and he really is a lovely little bike rider.
He is. The rider with him, Ruben Perez, is only in his 3rd year as a professional. He turned professional as an apprentice in 2005 towards the end of the season. Looking down here into the face of David Miller. Miller just riding a time trial at the front here. They've pretty much, Phil, assassinated most of Sonia Duval, the team, because a lot of those riders have gone off the back of the group. I just hope that Iban Mayo can pay them back.
Absolutely. Miller's riding superbly. This is Nicolas Portal, a Frenchman on the Case de Pon team of Alejandro Valverde. He's slipped off the back. We continue to see the riders fall away. Jérôme Pinot is gone now. These riders all unhitched. That yellow car's the neutral service. They put that in the gap when the riders split because the team cars aren't allowed to go through just yet. Perez Sanchez is going. So Case de Pon are losing men. And on the far side there, Paul, it looks to me as though Linus Gerneman is also slipping away. The babyface boy who triumphed on the opening day in the Alps and claimed a yellow jersey. He's still lying second in the white jersey competition, but he's losing ground there now.
Well, he still has come to this Tour de France to learn. He's got a very experienced man with him. Just in front is Axel Merckx and one of my favourite workers, Van Sommeren. So just looking down at the front end of the main field there, you can see David Miller still prepared to set out the tempo. And the work that he's done has actually really quite lacerated the front end of the main field. The yellow jersey, Michael Rasmussen, you can just spot there in 5th place, his yellow jersey. A little bit more iridescent than the yellow of the Sonia Duval squad of Miller and Iban Mayo. Mayo sitting in about 12th position over on the right-hand side. But the reason Sonia Duval are doing this work here this afternoon, it's to make sure that Iban Mayo can finish it off towards the end. Valverde over on the right-hand side in the black jersey. We're now looking at the leading group at 4 minutes and 50 seconds is the gap. And in fact, once again, I think this time it's Perez who's disappearing away. The two riders from Euskaltel Euskadi are zigzagging and bobbing in and out of this lead group. We're looking at 56 kilometers to go. That is Perez who's been dropped there. So it's Antonio Colom in the front. And a little bit further back, we have got the other rider from Euskaltel Euskadi. And there he is. Perez is the rider who was dropped, but not by very much. I mean, he's only looking here at around about 10 seconds. He doesn't need to panic, just ride comfortably at his own pace and make sure he doesn't lose too much, because he can ride himself back into a different rhythm. Drinks motorbike just over to the side there. Antonio Colom, we're getting up to the narrower part of this climb. We get a chance to see it is a very small road up towards the summit of the climb here this afternoon. And once we go over the top, we've got a very precarious technical descent into Axle Terme.
Well, superb riding, Paul. He's got on his shoulder there, he's got Michael Bogart. Slowly but surely, this is becoming the peloton of race favourites, as one by one they're sent backwards. Now it's the turn of the smallest man in the race, Alexander Botcharov.
He too is succumbing to the pace. So too is Sylvain Chavanel, who was going to be the best Frenchman overall. I'm sure he was going to overtake Christophe Moreau at the end of the day. But this is a serious thrashing that David Miller is handing out. And he's doing it for one reason and one reason only, and that is to try and move his man, Iban Mayo, 11th overall, 12th overall at the start of the day, into a higher place in the overall classification. I can see Cadel Evans in that group, Phil, and he's got Chris Horner, the American, with him to look after him. Horner, I have to say, is riding a brilliant Tour de France this year. Alexander Vinokourov sitting at the back end of the field. Now, I wonder if this is just a little bit of psychology to make people think he's weakening, or if he hurt himself a lot in the time trial yesterday.
He said he'd be fine today after he finished the time trial yesterday, but you don't know how your body kicks in, and very often the first big climb, it's not good. If you get through it, the second big climb, you tend to feel a little bit better. There's his teammate. This is Colomb taking an early shower here, but he's up against the two boys from Euskaltel-Euskadi having a brilliant climb.
Well, they're having a strange climb, if you ask me, because one minute one is in front, the next minute the other's in front, one gets dropped, one comes back. And it's because of the gradient, it's because they can't find a common rhythm. But fortunately, as they get closer to the summit, they're still there, still in contact. But I'm sure they'll have a bit of a laugh about this tonight at the dinner table.
Well, there might still be a way in the way they're climbing. And look at this now, just dropping away off the back. De La Fuente's gone, and now it looks as though Vinokourov, he's not panicking, but he looks to me as though he is losing a few meters. The elastic has started to stretch here. Well, he lifts the pace a bit. He's got a teammate with him.
And he's got David De La Fuente just behind him there as well. The teammate who's dropped back to help him is Daniel Navarro. He's a Spanish rider on the squad. It's not surprising, really, because yesterday Alexander Vinokourov gave a phenomenal demonstration in the individual time trial. And maybe it's one of those things, Phil, where he's concentrated on his time trialing in the last couple of months to get himself ready for the Tour de France. And all of a sudden, he spent too much energy yesterday. He's going to have to try and ride himself back into this race. But he is a rider of experience and class, and he won't give up. And there is a nasty climb, a nasty descent after this climb, which he could use to back up.
Well, the rider with him isn't going to be a lot of help, quite honestly. He's not very strong, Daniel Navarro. The rider in front is Igor Martinez, who's also coming back, and he's a strong climber. And all this is being done by Britain's David Miller, getting rid of some of the big names here. You can see the wind. It's not so bad on this col, gentle from the left, but it is very, very strong on top of the Plateau de Bay.
Well, looking back there in 8th or 9th position, you can see George Hincapie in the red, white and blue. He's riding exceptionally well. It's important for Team Discovery Channel. You talked a little earlier, Phil, about the team classification, and yes, Astana did take the lead in the team classification yesterday. That's why they've got the yellow numbers on, but only by 54 seconds from Team Discovery Channel. And Team Discovery Channel have got a lot of cards to play here this afternoon, especially if Big George is still there to help Alberto Contador, Levi Leipheimer and Jaroslav Popovic.
Well, this is proving to be, we don't talk a lot about the team race, but it's been a very close battle between four teams the whole stretch since we left London. Astana were the team leaders for the first few days, and they got it back yesterday in the time trial.
Well, I shouldn't have said Jaroslav Popovic, because Race Radio just crackled with the name of Popovic struggling at the back of the group.
There's a few riders in trouble on this climb, I think. Big names are beginning to struggle right now.
This is the front of the race, though, at 54 kilometres to go, 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Trying to get back to a solid picture of the front end of the main field, and still David Miller is riding in his own personal zone. He's riding here, Phil, as if he was riding in an individual time trial. Not asking for help, not asking for assistance, but he has actually damned here Jaroslav Popovic. Let's not forget, Popovic had a very nasty crash in the time trial yesterday. A lot of riders did, and I think they're paying for it.
Well, so too did Andreas Kloden, but he's sitting just off the right shoulder of David Miller, while Miller makes an excellent pace on the climb today. This hill is proving very hurtful to a lot of good names here. Here's Vinokourov now, and he's losing sight of the tail of that peloton. Now, if he gets over the top around a minute behind, in theory, he should ride himself back up to it, but then he's got to climb the final climb of the Plateau de Bay. He can't afford to lose time today, and he knows it.
Oh, he said it's over, please leave me alone. I think this man, Phil, wants to suffer in silence here this afternoon. That was a phenomenal performance yesterday to announce that he was still possibly a threat in this year's Tour. But, you know, even if he gets over the top with a deficit of a minute, and we're just treated here to an action replay of his waving goodbye, but I don't think it's yet goodbye. He still won't give up. That man will continue to fight, because he knows even if he can't win the Tour, his responsibility now is going to turn to Andreas Kloden, who is still a serious threat.
Well, Kloden said this morning at the start that it will be the legs who would decide who was the leader of the team. And right now it looks as though Kloden, who's riding over that blue helmet on, is the man who has the legs. He's still there. He's got two teammates with him, including Kashikin, and Savadelli is in here for the team. Miller has been absolutely brilliant today with his tempo riding on the front. There's the polka dot jersey worn by Juan Mauricio Soler. And this now is becoming a very select group indeed.
And I'm happy to say that it's a very select group. Our mate Charlie Wagalis is in that group, and he's proving to really enjoy the climbs of the Tour de France here. Charlie's quite a long way down in the overall classification, but every time we see a reduction in numbers in the mountains, he's still there.
Well, he's a very, very good climber, but he's always handicapped by the fact he has to help the strong members on his Liquigas team, which is an Italian squad. Wagalis comes from Cheshire, but originally from Finland. This is the breakaway, and it's still Colomb. The only two riders with him there are the two riders from Euskaltel Euskadi. This is the corkscrew towards the top of the Porte de Paillet.
Well, it's 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the advantage of these three leaders over the yellow jersey group, which is now down to around about 40 riders strong. Just trying to chase across the gap. I just caught a glimpse there of Jose Ivan Gutierrez, and David Miller here on the front is riding like a man possessed. Looking over his shoulder, he wants to see the sort of damage he's done. And I think all of a sudden now he said, well, that's it, I'll go back and see how my man is doing, Iban Mayo. And in fact, the damage here has put Tadej Valjavec into difficulty as well, the Slovenian national champion. He's about to disappear as well from the group. So on the first big climb of today, the tempo set by David Miller has already created a large number of casualties. And there's a rider dropping back here from Barlow World as well, and this is Kanatstin Sutsu. He too is in difficulty. He's getting popped off the back, but the man who leads Team Barlow World and who leads the King of the Mountains classification, Juan Mauricio Soler, is very much present and correct. Soler lost himself a little bit of time in the overall classification because of a bad time trial, but you can see David Miller, job done for the day. An incredible set of tempo, but he was trying to eliminate as many people as possible, and now that little look at the camera indicates to me that Miller knows, job done, I'll just cruise home.
Well, here we are now lower down the slope. Miller did his job, destroyed Vinokurov and Popovic and himself in the process. That little bit was to be expected, as these boys now are just trying to stay in the picture and find the top of the mountain.
Well, that's the important thing now for Alexander Vinokurov. He's got to try and find a little bit of rhythm just to keep himself and limit his losses. But I think, Phil, he's really paying for that time trial. It was a phenomenal performance yesterday. He was the fastest man at every time split yesterday, but he's paying for that now because he's off the back of the group in chase group number 5. All of the other major contenders that we've talked about are still pretty much locked in the yellow jersey group with Michael Rasmussen.
And the rider setting the pace now is Thomas Dekker, the 22-year-old young superstar here, has got himself on the front to do his job as the super domestique. Rasmussen has moved up into third wheel. Rasmussen, sooner or later, must attack here because he needs more time over Cadel Evans, and this is building up in tempo as now it's Bogart with Thomas Dekker.
I think logically, from a tactical point of view, what Michael Rasmussen needs to do is eliminate, as he's eliminated through the help of other riders in this group, as many people as possible, and then try and really put the hammer down on the final climb of the day. Because if he's got his climbing legs back after his performance in the time trial yesterday, he could actually pull back a minute, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to make his move now, not look for a long breakaway, but look for a time breakaway on the big final climbs, like the final climb of today, Plateau de Bay, and then again the climb up to the summit of the Obisque.
Well, this doesn't look good here. In fact, Vinokurov, his teammates asked him if he's all right, and Vinokurov sort of shaking his head and has looked for the doctor's car. Gerard Porte, the doctor, come alongside him. So he's still not right, is he?
He's still not right. He really is suffering quite a lot, but you've got to tip your hat to the courage of this man to do the performance he did yesterday, because despite the way that he dragged his body through the Alpine passes, despite the fact that he was dropped on a number of occasions, he still came out yesterday and fought like a true warrior from Kazakhstan.
He pleased a lot of people. Now this man shocked a lot of people in third place, the yellow jersey of Rasmussen. and they're keeping the pressure on here now. This is building for an explosion, I think. Look at the face of Dekker. Dekker himself in his first tour, he's 40th overall, did a good time trial yesterday. He's not here for the high finish this year, but one day he may be a rider who's racing for a podium place. He's getting a taste for the Tour now. First time he's ever ridden it. You'd think he was a veteran.
Well, he's riding like a veteran, and what a way to learn, riding on the team of the yellow jersey. 4 Rabobank riders in the first 4 places there. Just behind the yellow jersey of Michael Rasmussen was the co-leader at the start of the Tour, Denny Menchov. He too has been damned a long way down the overall classification with a very bad performance yesterday. Menchov is in 16th place. Juan Manuel Garate now slipping backwards as well.
Well, it's every man for himself. A lot of people hanging on here now. That's Astalosa in a spot of bother in front too.
Well, the leading group of 3 is now 4 because Jose Ivan Gutierrez has managed to recover. He went through his little bad patch on the couple of kilometers to go to the summit. Now at 2 kilometers to go to the Port de Payer. He has managed to reintegrate the leading group. So it's Perez on the front, followed by Colom, followed by Churuca, followed by Jose Ivan Gutierrez in the black and red jersey of Case Stepania.
Well, over to the right, the beauty of the Pyrenees when you come up this road to enjoy the views. Today it is just a road of purgatory. These are the 4 riders, and the 2 Euskaltel Euskadi riders have tried everything they've got just now, and they haven't got rid of the other 2. They keep coming back. You get a little idea from this shot just how horribly steep this climb is as they go round to the right. Now this is the back of the race, by the way, here. It's not the new leaders.
Now the man who I was amazed in his performance, Astrolosa, he started the day filling 8th position overall, and he is going through a terrible patch here. He's got a teammate up alongside him, Gorka Verdugo, who's trying to encourage him to pull him back. But in fact, you can see Vinokourov is going even worse now. He's been picked up by Sylvain Chavanel, who went backwards before he did. Yeah,
Chavanel's climbed up and through him, I think. In fact, Vino just wants the end of this, and this hill gets steeper before the summit. He's going to lose more time. Meanwhile, there is the big climber and the yellow jersey. It looks as though he's just out for a Sunday stroll here. He's not going to attack on this climb. He's just letting his teammates eliminate a lot of people. Peeping round the corner, Levi Leipheimer, George Hincapie beginning to unhitch as well on the climb. Getting up towards the summit, though, George should get back on the way down.
Well, I noticed George had left in there a very comfortable-looking Levi Leipheimer and, of course, a more than comfortable-looking Alberto Contador.
We're going round another hairpin bend, and 3 minutes 35 seconds is the gap we're hearing now from the leaders to the premier part of the peloton, containing the Maillot Jaune. Leipheimer in 5th wheel. Cadel Evans making sure he keeps an eye on everybody. He's just off to the left of our picture. Sola is turning out to be a super revelation, Paul. This guy's looking for points at the top of the mountain. There's only a handful of riders ahead of him.
Hincapie, red, white and blue, the US national champion. He's been joined here by Christian van der Velde. Van der Velde riding well in the mountains. He's a support rider for Carlos Sastre, but there are only 24 riders, Phil, left in the group of the yellow jersey. This has already, before the final climb of the day, been a serious sorting out.
24 riders, 24 riders left here in this group, as one by one they've dropped off. 1 or 2 big names have gone off as well. These boys are still surviving by 3.5 minutes. And the 2 riders from Euskaltel Euskadi, they're going to fight out the top of the climb now. Just over a kilometre to go to the top. Then it's the fast descent down below. And watch out for the polka dot jerseyed rider. If he gets there in front of the yellow jersey of Rasmussen, he gets the outright lead in that competition.
And that's what he'll be looking for. But fasten your seatbelts, because the descent of this climb is rapid. Those are the 4 leaders, 2 riders from Euskaltel Euskadi, followed by Antonio Colom and Jose Ivan Gutierrez. 4 riders at the head of the race as we head down towards the frontier of Spain, and the Spanish flags will be flying very high in the sky. And of course, let's not forget, the Basque flags will be flying very high as well, because the Basque people love their cycling and they love their cycling team, and their cycling team is bedecked in the orange jerseys here. Just looking down there, that is what these riders have had to drag their bodies up here this afternoon. We're looking down at the damage that the Côte de Payer has done on the main field of the Tour de France today. It has damned Alexander Vinokourov off the back end of the main field. We're just looking with the helicopter, we're searching for the peloton, but we're finding groups of 1 and 2 and 3.
Big tempo riding still by Thomas Dekker here. Behind him, Michael Bogart looking after their man. Denny Menchov is there as well. They're all around their boy in yellow now. They're trying to keep him safe on this climb. Keep him safe and don't let him use too much energy. It is going to be like a rabbit going up the Plateau de Bay because they are all going to attack. That's evident now.
Cadel Evans over on the left-hand side alongside Levi Leipheimer. I'm very impressed today with the ride being done here by Thomas Dekker. As you said, Phil, it's his first ride in the Tour de France. It's the first time he's experienced this kind of crowd, this kind of support, but it's also important for him because he's got the yellow jersey in his team, and that can allow you to ride just that little bit better. You remember how US Postal Service used to ride when Lance Armstrong was leading the race, and then Discovery Channel where they had him on board? It makes the rider change into a different man. You can push yourself sometimes that little bit harder when you're doing it for a teammate who you think is going to win.
Right. 1 kilometre to go to the summit now. Which one of these will get it? My money will go on number 78, Amit Chiruka. This is still the man who is ahead. This will be Kaczynski. No, he's not ahead anymore. They've just gone over the top of him. He's just about got room to get round that corner. That was a nasty thing to do. That's the steepest way around the bend. Thomas Dekker brings the field around. Good tempo riding. There is only 4 riders in front now, so a 5th place sprint here. And the polka dot jersey being worn. Now Chiruka is sitting in 12th place after his escapade the other day, and he gets quite a number of points here at the top.
20 points he could get at the top, and that would catapult him right up into 4th position in that competition. And let's not forget, it's double points on the final climb of the day, so there's a nice 40 points at store for the first rider who gets to the summit of the Plateau de Bay.
Which wouldn't give him the lead tonight, but will put him in a great place for taking it tomorrow if he's got the legs left. But right now it is Juan Soler who is looking to become the outright leader in the King of the Mountains, and that means Rasmussen loses that jersey tonight because Soler is right there, about 4 men down behind the yellow jersey, and we'll see if he goes for the points.
Well, Team Rabobank are a team transformed and transcending themselves because of the yellow jersey in their squad. Thomas Dekker here is riding the best that I've ever seen him ride, Phil. The man in second place as well, Michael Bogard. He's never really been a great mountain climber. He's a great one-day classics rider, but here he too knows it is important for him to be in presence and in contact with the race leader, Michael Rasmussen.
Camera's gone back a little way down the road with Alexander Vinokourov, who knows now he's just got to hope he can get back into this race. The bye-bye isn't too encouraging, though, is it? I think he's saying to us he's out for the day here.
I think he just wants to be left alone to suffer in silence. No rider going through this kind of purgatory wants it to be completely and utterly recorded by the press all around the world. And for Alexander Vinokourov, I think he would feel a lot more comfortable, Phil, suffering in silence.
There's the race up towards the summit now. This has been a very steep and difficult climb, eliminating rider after rider with just tempo riding. And there he goes, the boy. It's in fact Ruben Perez who's going to go over first. And it looks as though his teammate is not going to challenge him, Chiruka. They deservedly go over the top first and second. And a good ride by Antonio Colom as well. Now they're looking for paper to stuff up their jerseys to keep out the chill wind on the descent.
Well, I tell you one thing, Phil, you better fasten your seatbelt now because the early part of this descent is fairly fast and not technical at all. But once we get down towards the outskirts of Ax-les-Thermes, it is a very scary descent. And I remember in the history of the past Tour de France's in this area, we've seen some pretty nasty accidents on the downhill.
And the peloton are just over a kilometre back of those leading 4 riders now, as we again look at riders in trouble. This looks like Dmitry Fofanov. Now he's also dropped off the back. At 50 kilometres to go to the summit now, you can count them all. And this rider from CSC here is Indigo Cuesta, as he also is normally a good climber. He's lost. One by one they're being dispatched. There is no longer even 24 riders in the group. And we're coming up here on Mayo. I think that's Mayo, isn't it?
Well, I thought it was, but it isn't. Fortunately, it is Mayo. He is the man who's come backwards and the man who David Miller completely and utterly assassinated himself for. And now Iban Mayo is having a hard time. But look at this, your man,
This is what he wants.
Maurizio Soler, is going.
And all he needs is this sprint to take the lead in that jersey he's wearing on loan from Rasmussen. And he did this in the Alps. He got this incredible turn of speed. He crawls all over his bicycle. He's not really a very experienced cyclist, but he certainly can show boys in the Tour de France how it's done in the mountains. His first tour as well. Look at him working the gears there. Looks over his shoulder. He can take it easy now.
Well, he can take it easy, just needs to get himself the points, but he doesn't know where the summit of this mountain is. Let's not forget, this is his first ever crack at the Tour de France, and I don't think Team Saunier Duval are going to be very happy this evening, because Iban Mayo, who got his team on the front to do all of the pacemaking, has gone pop.
And trying now just to hold on to the tail of them. He will get back on the descent and he might recover. But just looking down, there's been no reaction there from Thomas Dekker or Michael Bogart. So this gets rid of the polka dot jersey off the shoulders of Michael Rasmussen, who has to concentrate on winning the Tour de France just now. Soler sits there in 22nd place today. But this rider isn't thinking of that position. He's now got himself the real lead in the King of the Mountains.
This guy did not start riding a bike until he was 17 years of age. He went out to see a local bike race in the area where he's from, of Boyacá in Colombia, and thought, I like this, I'll try this. And a couple of years later, they came back and won the Tour of Boyacá. And now he is the outright leader of the King of the Mountains, Phil, in the Tour de France.
Well done to Maurizio Soler.
Now, after the excitement of the climb, a little bit of respite for the riders in the yellow jersey group. They can recover and get themselves back into the frame of mind to think about what they're going to do on the next climb of the day. John Gadret there, number 66, who's riding a lot better in the last week of the Tour. Just a drop there. That was the newspaper getting dropped there by Kim Kirken of T-Mobile. This is what the front group looks like. The four leaders went over the top there, but now Soler leads the King of the Mountains classification ahead of Michael Rasmussen. So they're on the descent and they still have 2 minutes and 48 seconds advantage. Well, the four leaders now are safely over the summit of the climb of the Porte de Paillere, and so too is the yellow jersey group, but now they're separated by 2 minutes and 45 seconds. They are about to start a very long descent. The summit of the Porte de Paillere is at 50.5 kilometers to go. The town of Aix-les-Thermes is at 32 kilometers to go. And now the chase is happening, while further back on the slopes of the Porte de Paillere, still trying to get himself to the summit, is Alexander Vinokourov. Yesterday the hero, today the man just like anyone else.
Yes, awfully sad. The wind now picked up 2 across the top of the hill here, or the mountain. There's the lead group going down, and I think there's about 18, maybe 20 at a push. That's all that's left in this group. The other big stars, though, are in there. Rasmussen, we know, is in there. So too Cadel Evans, Contador, Leipheimer, Kashikin, Sastre. Not Astolosa, who started the day in 8th overall. He's been dropped for the moment. Vinokourov in 9th has been dropped. I think Kirken is still in there, and so too is Valverde of the top 11 riders overall.
And what I'm impressed about is the presence in there of Chris Horner, the American rider. Again, on Cadel Evans'
going so
team.
well.
He's actually pushing himself to stay in contact with the group for as long as possible, because he knows he has to help Cadel Evans at some time or another throughout the mountains. And Cadel has a simple problem. 1 kilometer to go now, though, for Alexander Vinokourov, whose Tour de France today, Phil, I have to say now, is definitely over.
So I wonder if he'll think of throwing this in, Paul, because he's feeling rough right now. He can't even hold on to his teammates, who isn't the best of climbers, I have to say. Navarro, these are the leaders going down. We are hearing on Race Radio, Mayo has gone over the top, 15 seconds behind the lead pack of riders, who are in turn chasing those 4 Spanish riders. I think I might have just seen Mayo just get into that corner off the back.
Well, he's got a chance to recuperate over the next 30 kilometers or so, because we'll drop down for 30 kilometers down into Aix-les-Thermes, then along the valley road, and then we'll take a left-hand turn and he'll face up to 16 kilometers of ascension up to the Plateau de Bay. and I wonder if he's got the possibility of turning round his form.
Exactly 20 riders here. We might even see Mayo come back into our view. He's could be in that group, actually. There's 2 riders there. They'll get back. You can see the peloton have decided not to race down here. There he is as he comes back up here. And then so they're lucky because the peloton has decided to have a little bit of a truce, and a few riders should get back now.
Well, they had a major sort out on the early slopes of the Porte de Paillere. They wanted to see who was going to get left behind, and now they have to take it a little bit careful on this descent, Phil, because this is a very dangerous descent, and having had a race up the Porte de Paillere, they now know they've got to have a serious race once we get up to the next climb of the day, the Plateau de Bay, and I think they won't take too many risks on the descent.
Well, that makes sense at the moment because once they get onto the climb, it is a very steep start and it stays pretty steep all the way up.
So the 2 riders from Euskaltel Euskadi and Race Radio, as we look at the Tête de la Course, the leading group of 4 riders, Gutierrez, Perez, Chiruka and Colom. Race Radio is telling me that Iban Mayo has just made contact again with the leading group of the yellow jersey and all of the major contenders in this race. But that will have been a little bit of a surprise to him because the team felt that he was the man today who was going to come up with the goods. He needs to get himself back into form, and he needs to get himself psychologically back into the frame of mind of a winner of the stage. The team did a great job for him, and now he must get back into it and repay them. Alexander Vinokourov is losing a whole chunk of time now, and he's actually losing the Tour de France. He climbed back up yesterday into 9th place in the overall classification with a brilliant performance in the individual time trial. But with this performance here, he's going to see himself lose a massive amount of time. Currently, Alexander Vinokourov has lost 5 minutes on the yellow jersey group. Well, just looking at Alexander Vinokourov here, he's going to go over the summit of the Porte de Paillere, 5 minutes behind the yellow jersey.
42 kilometres from the finish. We're looking at riders going over the top as well as the riders go down here at high speed. 4 leaders, Paul. They might increase the lead for the next few minutes. Now, look at that, 90 kilometres an hour. So we're going down now at not far short of 60 miles an hour here. Well, look at this descent going down here now. He's got to get on quickly.
He needs to, but I'm just looking at his style here. He does not look comfortable on his machine. I'm not sure if it's because of the white bands around his shorts there, the yellow shorts of Team Saunier Duval, but it does not seem that he's all that comfortable on his machine. There's the yellow jersey. He's in 2nd position. He's got Thomas Dekker with him. He's got just in front of him Denis Menchov. The new leader of the King of the Mountains behind him, Juan Mauricio Soler, Cadel Evans. A little bit further back, Oscar Pereira, Levi Leipheimer, Andrei Kashekin, Andreas Kloden. All of the big names are still present.
Well, Popovic also getting back now and carrying water bottles for the 2 riders up front here, Leipheimer and Contador. And Mayo is on. Few deep breaths required. That was a fast descent.
A very fast descent. We were looking at speeds of pretty close to 60 miles an hour, but Mayo did not look very comfortable at all, even on the downhill section of the course, and I have a feeling that he won't be enjoying his ascent of the Plateau de Bay here this afternoon.
Now, sometimes you can start off bad and get better, and that's what he's certainly hoping for right now.
So, I've just noticed there, number 73, that was Mikel Astrosa. Just in front of him, 95 is Bernard Cole, and this is another group on the road. This is the second group on the road with George Hincapie in it. There, number 37, there's Christian van der Velde. He's riding very well in the mountains, Christian van der Velde. This is the second group, and this is the group where Jaroslav Popovic is, so quite shortly they too might integrate the group of the yellow jersey. In fact, I think they're about to.
Just on the tail now, in fact, and that'll be good news for Discovery Channel if Popovic gets back. He's carrying water bottles from the team car for everybody up front. Quite a nice little group this. So this will push it up now to more than 30 riders in the main chase peloton. As we run down, Rasmussen's tired of reading the daily newspaper, so he's thrown it away. We call this the group Maillot Jaune because that's the man who's in charge of the Tour right now. He leads, let me remind you, by exactly 1 minute overall of Cadel Evans. No Australians ever podiumed in the Tour de France, and Cadel Evans isn't interested in a podium. He's looking to win the race, and he's only a minute behind just now, and in the group, of course.
Well, if we went straight through the Pyrenees and we went into the final time trial, Phil, with the gaps that we've got now, Cadel Evans would be a serious contender to take the overall victory, because the final time trial certainly is much more advantageous for Cadel Evans. However, unfortunately, we've still got a lot of big mountain climbs before we get to that individual time trial. But I'm sure Cadel, as we've watched him throughout the 2 weeks of racing that we've witnessed so far, he's yet to make a wrong mistake, and he's one of the few favourites who's not been involved in any contretemps at all.
No, absolutely right, and he's watching and waiting. Very clever guy, and planning the moves. It's like a giant game of chess, I think, to Cadel, and he probably plays that very well, so remind me not to play him. As we're looking at the 4 leaders here now, still a bit confused by the strange tactics of the riders in orange, as they've again put in an individual attack from the breakaway.
Well, somebody from Case d'Epargne here has decided it's a little bit late to try and organise the chase. So we've seen a rider here manage to move off the front of the yellow jersey group. It looks a little bit like Oscar Pereiro trying to move clear.
Well, that's, well, dare I say, a silly move if it's somebody of Pereiro's ability. But he's certainly coming down, and he's trying to cause a reaction from the field here. He might well get it too, but it's still a long way down. And the gap has opened up a little bit at 3:03, 3:08. It wasn't Pereira, I think it was David Arroyo just shot through on camera there. 3 minutes, 8 seconds anyway is the gap between the head of the peloton and those 4 men up front.
Well, still Rabobank quite happy to have a move, and they're all around their leader as we begin this very tortuous descent. We're looking down here now at the descent of the Porte de Paillere. Just sitting at the back here is Charlie Wegelius, who's had a brilliant ride on his first incursion into the Pyrenees. This is the second group on the road. They're around about 25 seconds behind the yellow jersey group. The yellow jersey group is about 2.5 minutes behind the 4-man leading group, which is made up of 4 Spanish riders. And the 4 Spanish riders are Jose Ivan Gutierrez, Ruben Perez, Ahmet Churruca and Antonio Colom. And for the moment, we are looking at the possibility of a regrouping before we get into the town of Aix-les-Thermes. Once the riders drop off this mountain into Aix-les-Thermes, they've got around about a 15-kilometre ride along the valley road before starting the final climb of the day, the climb up to the Plateau de Bay. This is also the group of George Hincapie. Hincapie is up at the front end of this group. He was tailed off over the final couple of kilometres towards the summit of the climb, and he's trying to get himself back into contention, because in that leading group he has a couple of teammates, Alberto Contador, who's the best young rider and 3rd place overall in the Tour, and he also has Levi Leipheimer as well. Just having a look here, this is the group at Maillot Jaune. I'm just trying to see, again, this is a little move coming forward by Team Astana. We've pulled that Case d'Epargne rider back into the fold. It's a tortuous descent. This is a very tricky descent. You've got to make sure you get the right angles going around the corner. Maxime Eglinski is in this group, as is, of course, Andreas Kloden. And with the performance today of Alexander Vinokourov, I think now, finally, Andreas Kloden will be given the ticket of team leader of Team Astana. He did a very good ride in the time trial yesterday, Kloden. He's moved up into 4th place in the overall classification. His teammate Andrei Kishekin is just a little bit further back in 6th place. As we rejoin the leading group of 4 here, Tête de la Course, the front end of the bike race. 2 riders from Euskaltel, Perez and Churruca. 1 rider from Case d'Epargne, Jose Ivan Gutierrez, the champion of Spain in the individual time trial. The yellow jersey group now has dropped to 2 minutes and 53 seconds, and 25 seconds behind them is the group of George Hincapie. But the big news, I suppose, of the day is that Alexander Vinokourov is 5.5 minutes behind the yellow jersey group, and I think now any chance of winning the Tour de France has been completely and utterly blown out of the water. 35.1 kilometres to go, and they can't be too far away from getting into the outskirts of Aix-les-Thermes. Rabobank are riding a superb race in protection of their overall leader. Iban Mayo dropped on the final kilometre of the Porte de Paillere, has reintegrated the group. Just looking at the back here, Charlie Wegelius Just in front of him, Mikel Astrolosa, who started the day in 8th position in the overall classification. He too was in difficulty on the Porte de Payer. Most of this damage was done because of the tempo set by David Miller, trying to set up something for his team leader, Iban Mayo. Well, there's the junction you can see just going past the referee's car in red. That's a group containing George Hincapie and Charlie Wegelius. Wegelius just sitting on the back here. In front of Charlie Wegelius is Christophe Lemervel, the rider from Crédit Agricole. And he's actually ridden fairly well in the mountain stages so far.
Well, they're not exactly descending in any form of common sense here, Paul. They keep jumping off the front of the break. We've got quite a long way now, probably the best part of 25 kilometres, downhill or in valley roads.
It's very fast, this part of the course.
Just around this big hairpin bend here. There's 4 leaders here as they get around the corner. They've got themselves back together again, the 4 leaders. Constantly under pressure by the riders in orange. You don't seem to want to ride with the other 2. Vinokourov is still chasing and still off the back, and it's not good for him today. And we have a little compact group, slightly getting a bit bigger, round about 25 riders now in the peloton at 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Well, I think that's going to be a big showdown on the plateau.
I think we can discount a return into the race field by Alexander Vinokourov because he went over the summit of the Porte de Payer 5.5 minutes behind the yellow jersey group, and that is a huge chunk of time for a man who so far has always been able to defend and always been able to stay in contact.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
A little bit of relaxation, a little bit of calming of the spirits now with 3 riders on the front from Team Rabobank. That's Menchov, followed by Michael Bogert, followed by Thomas Dekker, all basically looking after their man, Michael Rasmussen. They're not quite yet into the town of Ax-les-Thermes. Once they get into Ax-les-Thermes, they will continue down through the town of Savignac and then Luzenac and then into Albize. And once they get into the town of Albize, then they will start the climb of the Plateau de Bay.
Almost into Ax-les-Thermes for the peloton. We're certainly into town. And look at this big crowd here now as we get round the roundabout. We drove to that roundabout, Paul, at 6 o'clock this morning, heading to the top of the plateau. There wasn't a single person in town, but there is now. They're all out and seeing the Tour de France go straight through Ax-les-Thermes. If you go the opposite way to the race, you'll drive straight into Spain. But we are now riding to the plateau, about 15 kilometres of flat-out racings, no climbs down this road. Then you turn left and crash. You're on the plateau.
It's looking a little bit urgent in this leading group of 4. Antonio Colom here is showing the power that he's got. He's very happy with the fact, I think, Phil, that the road has levelled out a fraction. He wasn't so happy earlier on with the accelerations coming from the 2 men in orange, the orange of Euskaltel Euskadi. And this man, well, you can always count on Jose Ivan Guterres to ride well once the road flattens out also, because he is the Spanish time trial champion.
Yes, an amazing rider. He's got the most experience in the breakaway, but he must think he's got on the wrong train here, because these 2 boys in orange, first-time Tour riders, have been hitting him every chance they've had. And they've now, I think they'll be better to control now we're on the flatter roads for the next 14 kilometres or so.
Well, this is the group of Michael Rasmussen. The race situation is that there are 4 leaders that we just saw a few moments ago, and the one man we kind of forgot about, caught in no man's land, is Carlos Barredo, the rider in the blue jersey from Team Quickstep. He's around about 1.5 minutes behind the 4 leaders, and sadly enough for him, Phil, he's 1.5 minutes in front of the yellow jersey group.
That was Paolo Savidelli, who signalled he wants a drink, but he's quickly pedalled back into the pack. Number 12 is David Arroyo, sitting at the back here now, the man that went over the cliff on the ride the other day into Tignes, but he got back up, no problems. It was only poor old Michael Rogers who dislocated his shoulder, who was out of the Tour on that occasion. These are the riders in the peloton. Oh, it's got quite considerably bigger now, Paul, so I guess Jaroslav Popovic and co are back up here.
Well, Popovic, George Hincapie, Mikel Astrolosa, a lot of riders who were suffering on the slopes of the Col de la Porte de Payer are now back in this group, and in fact it's swelled. It was down to around about 20 riders. I think when we actually get into town, Phil, we're going to be looking at a group here of around about 50. But that again will split once we start the climb up to here to Plateau de Bay.
Rest assured, it most certainly will.
Well, just looking here at Rabobank, they've got a very strong, solid team around their man Michael Rasmussen, but they just need to play it safe and careful. They don't need to push it too much on the descent here. The riders in that leading group are not dangerous at all in the overall classification. This is Chris Horner at the back in the pink jersey, just ahead of number 12, David Arroyo. And the race situation is that the four leaders are still holding on to a 3-minute and 18-second advantage. In fact, Carlos Barredo has made a phenomenal descent off the slopes of that mountain. He's around about 17 seconds off rejoining the leading group of four. And what a great day for the Spaniards, because if he does reintegrate that leading group and make it a 5-man group, it will be 5 riders from Spain leading the Tour de France on the borders of the Spanish peninsula. The best man in that leading group of 4, by the way, in fact, is Jose Ivan Gutierrez.
The leaders now going through the centre, and that has grown tremendously, that peloton. But although we clock speeds of up to 80 and 90 kilometres an hour, they got back on, and that group now has got to be 45 strong.
It's a big group. They'll slow down now. They'll try and figure out what they're going to do for the approach to the climb. They're not too worried about the riders up front. Of the riders in the leading group of 4, the best rider is Jose Ivan Gutierrez at 15 minutes and 21 seconds. But Carlos Barredo has made a phenomenal descent. He's taken all kinds of risks. He's at about 10 seconds. And the fact that they've pulled all the cars out of the gap there, you can see he's about to catch up.
Well, Barredo was with the group, so he must have come right back into it here. I'm very surprised he's getting back, but he's going to get back, so 5 riders should start the last climb. We're looking here at George Hincapie now, is also driving back into the group. Thomas Decker is there doing the hard work. Cole of Austria for Gerolsteiner. Bit of a runny nose for the yellow jersey, or was it sweat? But he hasn't put a wheel wrong yet today, Michael Rasmussen. And I'm sure, Paul, he's going to try and hurt these boys on the climb.
Well, George Hincapie has come to the front for only one reason. That's to try and set something up for a stage victory for Team Discovery Channel here this afternoon. And they have a man who's got an incredible turn of acceleration, and that is Alberto Contador. And I'm sure that's what Big George is thinking about. George knows that if he got dropped on the Porte de Payer, he won't be going to the summit of the Plateau de Bay with the leading group, so he might as well do some work here for the team.
Well, that's Kuzinski putting a bottle in his pocket. He was in the break, and he's come back up to this leading group as well. Cadel Evans, there he is, just going through in the pink jersey, number 41. He's keeping an eye on everyone. Really, he's in the best position in this race. He's not carrying the pressure of the yellow jersey. He's best placed of everybody else in the Tour. He knows the leader can't ride a time trial to beat him. He's just got to mark his men.
I always feel sorry for a guy like this. There you can just see Carlos Barredo, and he's around about 100 meters off the back of this group. These guys are working. They've got absolutely no reason at all to wait for him. So he's riding at exactly the same speed as they are. And it's, you can almost, in a situation like this, you can almost reach out and touch the breakaway group in front of you, but you can't just nail down that last 100 meters.
Well, Carlos Barredo, well known in Australia because he won the 3rd stage of the Tour Down Under last year. I'm a little bit surprised he got dropped anyway, but they did hit him hard, these riders in orange. It looks to me as though Gutierrez knows he's coming. He wants a drink. Well, don't forget that, sorry Paul, but let's remind everybody that in the group, most of the favourites in that big chase group at about 3.5 minutes. The only one we've lost today, sadly to say, I have to say, Alexander Vinokurov. He's now out of the hunt, I feel, but you never know the way he fights back.
Well, he will fight back if he's given the chance to, but I think George Hincapie is on the front of the main field trying to chase these men. 3 minutes and 33 seconds. They're all panicking a bit now because they're trying to put their hands up, asking for the team managers to come forward. But with Carlos Barredo off the back of that group, the team managers have been brought behind Carlos Barredo. It's what is known in cycling terms as a barrage, and they're making sure that he doesn't use the team cars to come forward and reintegrate the leading group. This is the Arrière de la Course, the back end of the race, and this is Sylvain Chavanel.
Well, he's done all right to get back in. He's fighting for top Frenchman in the Tour now, because goodness knows where on earth Christophe Moreau is right now.
Well, I was just looking to see, because a few moments ago this was the group that actually contained Alexander Vinokourov, but I think Sylvain Chavanel has ridden past Alexander Vinokourov to join this group, and in this group is one of the tough workers from Cadel Evans's team, and that's Johan van Sommer, and this is Axel Merckx.
Merckx comes through. Ludovic Turpin is the rider in blue, as these riders are getting back. Xavier Florencio, a Spanish rider on the French team. Well, the Spanish rider in the French team. Riders coming back, looking for the arrival of Vinokourov. I don't think we're going to see it. I'm afraid you're right, Paul. Vino let this group go by him, and big Johan van Summeren has made it too. Those big legs pumping away in the second group here might well close it down. He's trying to get news on the radio.
What's happening? Bridge to engine room. How's Cadel Evans doing? Well, I can tell you one thing. Cadel Evans is doing fine, thank you very much. Don't worry too much. The leading group of 4 riders now, Phil, are inside of 25 kilometers to go.
These are the 4 leaders. Looks as though Chiruda might be hanging on just now. We have just passed under the 25 kilometre to go banner for Carlos Berrido there, who is trying to hook up with the 4 leaders. He was with them, and he's now trying to come back to them. This at 3 minutes 24 seconds is the group containing the yellow jersey, and Alexander Vinokourov for the group behind, and behind, the one behind, is riding himself out of the race at the moment.
Well, there's the yellow jersey. Right locked onto his wheel is the man who now leads the King of the Mountains competition, Juan Maurizio Soler. What a great move by him. This is a group a lot further back. We're looking here at Frank Schleck. Now, that's a bit of a surprise, because he wasn't able to stay with his man, Carlos Sastre, but Inigo Cuesta was able to reintegrate that front group with the leader. So at least Carlos Sastre has a teammate alongside him.
Trying to get the food down here. I wonder if that's a sign he may be feeling a little bit hungry, which is not a good sign with the big climb still to come. Axel Merckx is still in this group.
Iker Camano there, one of the riders from Saunier Duval, who along with David Miller did massive chunks of work for their leader Iban Mayer. But these men are looking at a gap of around about 2 minutes to the yellow jersey group. Well, in fact, that 2 minutes that was given over race radio now has been confirmed at 4 minutes to the yellow jersey group. So Frank Schleck is losing a huge chunk of time as well. Frank Schleck, who started the day in 17th place, is going to disappear a little bit further down in the overall classifications at the end of today's stage. This is the leading group of 4 riders, and they're still just holding on to about a 7-second advantage over poor old Carlos Berrido, who just cannot quite make the junction. Hincapie, red, white and blue, the stars and stripes, the champion of the United States of America, not riding for his own account here this afternoon. He's riding for the account of a couple of riders a little bit further back, and those 2 riders a bit further back will be the man in the white jersey just over there on the left-hand side, Alberto Contador, and of course for his own teammate Levi Leipheimer, who are the 2 riders well placed from Team Discovery Channel. Contador 3rd, Levi Leipheimer 5th, and none of them too far away. Berrido here is just trying to get himself up to the wheel of those riders, and they are, well, there he is. He's done it. I have to say, hats off, well done, brilliant job for that man. And now he can sit in the slipstream of the other riders in the breakaway and try and recuperate a little bit until he gets to the bottom of the final climb of the day, the Plateau de Bay. But what a chase that was for him. So 2 riders from Euskaltel, and now it's a 5-man Spanish leading group.
25 kilometres for the peloton, Paul. Nice to see Berrido's made it, and just in time to go off the back, I would think. He can't be far from turning left to go up the mountain.
Well, at least by making junction with that leading group of 4 riders, swelling the number to 5, he can have an easy ride down the valley road and doesn't have to worry too much about battering his head against the wind, because as you said earlier on a number of occasions, Phil, the wind at the summit of this climb is a very strong headwind. And that, I think, is going to create a lot of havoc once the riders try to attack this ascent.
Well, it's just 5 kilometres from that left turn now onto the climb.
You might have just seen it. the town where these riders are heading for, and that town where the climb actually starts is the town of Albiz, and that is at 18.5 kilometers to go. So we're not far away. Hincapie looking over his shoulder there, and you can see Jaroslav Popovic has recovered. Team Discovery Channel have got 3 riders in this group, and they're obviously very happy with the position of Contador 3rd, Levi Leipheimer 4th. They've got a lot of tactical manoeuvring they can do with a situation like that.
I don't know about you, Paul. I feel more nervous than the riders because we know there are going to be some huge attacks on this climb now. Every brand for himself. This is Cuesta getting materials from the team car. Food. A lot of riders eating today, more than usually than just drinking.
Well, they need to. The difficult thing is the only time that we can get in close with the motorbike is actually on the flatter parts of the course, and that's actually the only time you can eat on a race like this.
True.
You can't eat going uphill, and you certainly can't eat a thing going downhill because you've got to have all of your wits about you. Hincapie, I think, has been asked here to go to the front and try and reduce that time gap, because I have a feeling the man just down to the right-hand side in the white jersey is nurturing thoughts of a stage victory here this afternoon, very much like the owner of the team Discovery Channel, Lance Armstrong, who won here a couple of years ago.
Well, on his right shoulder is Levi Leipheimer, his team captain. They're both riding well. Now, I keep on remembering what Levi said to me at the start of the Tour, the Pyrenees. That's where you'll see me, that's where it'll happen. And it's obviously in his mind as well as he sits there, about 8 or 9 men down. We're continuing to head towards the left-hand turn, about 3 kilometers to go for the leaders, and they will start the climb with about a 3.5-minute advantage. Big George here will take this race right to the base of the climb and then probably will peel off and get home as best he can.
I think that'll be the most important thing. George is a phenomenal performer. You know, he's been a professional for such a long time, yet he still has the enthusiasm for the sport. And in fact, although during the discussions and the rumours circulating around the Tour de France, his name was linked to the T-Mobile squad, it's recently been also linked to that brand new American team we're talking about.
We are just about to pass under, 20 kilometers to go. These 4 boys, a mere 12 miles. Unfortunately, the last 16 or 10 miles are all uphill. And there's 5 of them now. Barrido's just got back onto them, having been dropped earlier on. He's rejoined. Seeing the board there, we think it says around 2 minutes and 54 seconds. And I think we're going to see the 2 boys in orange attack immediately the slopes go up today. They will nurture a little slight hope that they can win this race. They won't realise that I think the peloton, there's a storm on the horizon and it's about to come down as we hit the Plateau de Bay.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a storm or a tornado we're about to witness once we get to the Plateau de Bay. You can see Perez is using an awful amount of energy here to try and keep the pace high. Ammunition being used up on the road down here. You can see how deep he's digging into his reserves there just to try and keep himself moving forward. La Remise is the town we're moving through here, and La Remise, in fact, it means the presentation in French, and as you can see here, everybody wants to celebrate the visit of the Tour de France as they come into town. La Remise is at 19.5 kilometers to go to the finish, and that puts it at around about 1.5 kilometers to the start of the climb. Antonio Colom in the pale blue turquoise jersey of Team Astana, while still on the front of this main field it's George Hincapie. I'm sure Team Discovery Channel must be nurturing thoughts of the possibility of a win, because the last 2 visits here to the Plateau de Bay, Team Discovery Channel or Team US Postal Service as it was then, were undefeated, because in 2004 the winner at the summit of this climb was Lance Armstrong. 2 years before that, in 2002, the winner was again Lance Armstrong, and before that in 1998 the winner up at the summit here was Marco Pantani. And people are dubbing Alberto Contador as the new leader of Team Discovery Channel, and a man who has got the most incredible kick of acceleration on the slopes of some of these mountain passes. Johan Broneil told us about him in the early part of the season when we went to see the Dauphiné Libéré. And he said, you watch out for this young man. He might not be experienced enough yet to win the Tour de France this year, but I've rarely seen a man who can kick on the slopes of a mountain just like he can. Hincapie's doing a good job. He's sliced that advantage now down to 2 minutes and 49 seconds. George had a very difficult start to the season. He was riding in great form and looking forward to the one-day classics, which he loves, Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Yet when he participated in the Amgen Tour of California in the month of February, he crashed in a crazy crash with a teammate, and in fact he went down so hard that he broke his wrist. He finished the stage with a broken wrist and then went off to hospital afterwards, and they said, sorry George, you're going to have to cut out the racing for a while, and he wasn't able to start racing for about 6 weeks. Just looking down there, there is Oscar Pereiro. Also Alejandro Valverde, number 11 for Pereiro, number 18 for Valverde. Valverde, I don't think very happy with his performance yesterday. Plunged from a second overall at the start of the day right down to 11th with a very bad performance in the individual time trial. Probably his worst ever ride.
As the 5 leaders are now not very far away from turning on to the Plateau de Bailly, Paul, the peloton still being dragged along by George Hincapie. And Carlos Pereira even doing a bit of work in that front group right now. These boys are just settling in now. This is going to be a doer battle, I think.
Look how Team Discovery Channel there in about 10th place have got themselves together. You can see first in that line of jerseys from Team Discovery Channel, the black and green jerseys, Jaroslav Popovic. He was dropped on the Porte de Payer. He's pacing there, Levi Leipheimer. Leipheimer's got on his wheel the young man who everybody's expecting to launch an attack on this climb, Alberto Contador.
Looking at the 5 leaders here, 2:42 is the gap, so they have actually started to pull this back on the flatter roads. Once we're through this village, we'll be heading towards the left-hand turn. 16.4, we must be virtually on the climb here, Paul. I think we might have missed the turn, but it can only just be through the town here of Les Cabanes. There's the part, there's the climb sign, 16 to go. Looking down on the red roofs of Les Cabanes, that is the town which will frighten half the race, because this is where the time starts for the climb of the Plateau de Bailly. We turn left now, the climb will begin. 16 very, very steep kilometres, and then the leading group goes to the climb with a lead of 2 minutes 38 seconds.
Yes, it's inside of 16 kilometres, just 2.5 minutes, and that's where we are right at the end. The summit of this climb to the Plateau de Bailly will be the finishing line for today's stage, and almost immediately we start the climb. Here is the first victim in the breakaway. I think Ruben Plaza here sacrificed himself for his teammate, because he probably thought his teammate had a much better chance, and already there's an acceleration going clear at the front, and the young man Ahmet Çeruka has taken off.
It was almost forecastable, that, because he's been itching to have a go. He's facing 16 kilometres of purgatory here if he wants to keep away, but I think he feels he can win this stage if it breaks right for him. Poor old Carlos Berrido, chased like mad through Axley-Terme, gets on about 5 kilometres before the climb. He's first man off.
Second man off, because Ruben Plaza was first man off. A little bit further now, we're on the steep part of the gradient here. The first kilometre of this climb, Phil, is a 9% gradient. Antonio Colom in the turquoise of Team Astana just sitting there, and on the back the man who's got the biggest engine and the most experience, Jose Ivan Gutierrez. And again, Çeruka looks over his shoulder, wants to take advantage of his fewer kilos than everybody else and launch another attack.
Well, he is the lightest bike rider in the Tour de France. He weighed in at 56 kilos. The name of Contador is all over the road here. The Spanish believe he can fly up this mountain, this youngster that had the terrible head injury and is now riding like we've never seen him before. Berrido, well, what is going on here? He's climbing back.
He's using his experience. He's not trying to follow the accelerations of the younger riders and the lighter riders. He gets into his own rhythm, and once they accelerate, after they've accelerated for a while, they tend to slow down a fraction. He's using that slowing down to come back and make himself in contact with the leading group once again. I think there's going to be a certain amount of difficulty now for Çeruka to get rid of these riders, because they've used a lot of energy in their breakaway. They escaped at 52 kilometres into the race, and now all of a sudden they're on the final climb of the day, and they know in the back of their minds there's going to be a serious showdown in the group of the yellow jersey behind them.
Yeah, I think that's why Çeruka wanted to get away and get things moving, because he wants to win the stage. There's no doubt about that now. and he needs an attack at the base of the climb to hold off the riders. Field now, this is the creme de la creme of the Tour de France. Les Cabanes for them, they will see the sign now. 16 kilometres to the top. Big George is going to see it first as they race on to another outside category race. This time though, the finish waits on the top. That was George's big effort. Any water for George because he's done all he can do today.
He said, thank you very much. Okay, guys, it's up to you. I've brought you here. I've set you up. But now it's the turn of the men of orange, of the flatlands of Holland, to try and dominate the mountains of the Pyrenees. Michael Bogaert is the man on the front, and he's setting a very rapid tempo just ahead of Denny Menchov. But still there and present is the yellow jersey of Michael Rasmussen. Just slipping backwards, George Hincapie did the job. He sacrificed himself. This is where you have to understand that the sport of professional cycling is a team sport. Hincapie rode with every last bit of energy that he had on the flat road to reduce the gap from the yellow jersey group up to the leading group of 4. Now all he's got to do is try and drag his big body up to the summit of this climb. Michael Bogaert on the front here, setting the tempo ahead of Michael Rasmussen. Queuing up behind him there is Cadel Evans and Chris Horner. Iban Mayo in the yellow jersey there of Team Saunier Duval is still very much present. Over to the left-hand side, I noticed Andreas Kloden was there too. So far, all of the main contenders are still very much in contention. There is the white jersey of Alberto Contador, dancing on those pedals, dragging himself up to the front. His teammate alongside him, Jaroslav Popovic. A massive climb this of almost 10 miles. And this man in the breakaway earlier on has now decided he has got to just try and survive to the finish. Alexander Kaczynski, he's slipping back. Pachi Villa, number 89, he's also being left behind. And once again, dropping off the back end of the group with Gorka Verdugo, but he did his job in getting his man, Mikel Astrolosa, back into the yellow jersey. His teammate, who wears number 73, started the day in 8th place in the overall standings. Christophe Leuven-Mervel is the next person to drop off the back end of this group. He's ridden well in the mountains, but here there is a serious battle going on. A little bit further up, this is Charlie Wegelius for Liquigas. He was sitting there to look after the presence of his own teammate who was in that leading group. And Charlie now just has to try and get to the finish as best he can. And just also slipping away for Liquigas, this is Manuel Beltran. Now that is a big surprise.
2 minutes 16, Paul. Chiruka still away. And the peloton, I just got this feeling that Rasmussen is waiting for his moment now. He's still got 2 teammates. This is Michael Bogaert.
He's going to use his teammates as much as possible. Look at the face of Denny Menchov there on the right-hand side, one of complete and utter concentration. Chiruka in the leading group, he's battling with his machine, battling with his body. He's all over, and he's just cracked Gutierrez.
Well, listen, I don't think he has. Gutierrez has gone back in. It looked like he had. But Chiruka, first-time Tour rider, a young lad, is really wanting to win this stage, and he's going to get all the support. You won't believe the support for the Basque on this climb. They recognise him. It's largely Spanish speakers now. You can see on the road the name of Contador. That's the rider they think could win. And poor old Carlos Perrido, he just gets on. He's gone off. He's got back. Now he's gone again.
Well, that's the tough thing about the Tour. You know, even if you're involved in a big battle on one of the stages, when you get to a mountaintop finish like this, Phil, you've still got to drag your body up to the summit to stay in the race. To do this again tomorrow, have a rest day, and do it again the day after that.
Well, 13.5 kilometres to go. These other two are giving as good as they get. They've sensed that Chiruka is trying to beat them, so they're not helping him now. This is back in the main field here now, as we can. This is Paolo Savidelli here. I think he's just about dropped from the group. He's behind.
He's riding there with Charlie Wegelius. Wegelius had stayed in the group for as long as possible to help Manuel Beltran. And Manuel Beltran has also been dropped for the group, and that's a bit of a surprise.
They're saying from the race now is 2 minutes 5. Accept 2:4. That's good enough for us. As we're now seeing one after one. This is Thomas Dekker, done a brilliant job for his team now. And that's an acceleration by Antonio Colom now. So the young man, Ahmet Chiruka, can he react? He's now getting a little bit of his own medicine. He's trying to get back on.
Well, look at him. He's the slightest built rider in the whole of the peloton of the Tour de France. And you can hear from the side of the road where they're all shouting, Venga, Venga, Venga. They want this man to go. Spain has turned out to support the Tour de France, and they're being treated to 3 Spanish riders battling it out at the front.
Well, at the moment, we're operating 2 Tours de France here. These are the boys who want the stage win. They're too far behind to win the race. 2 minutes behind them are the guys, all of them except Vinokourov, who can win the race in Paris. These 3 are Spanish, a very special reason to be here at this point of the course, because over the top you can just see Spain.
Well, you can see Spain. If you look the other way, you can also see the Principality of Andorra, and what that means is you're right in the heart of the Pyrenees. This young man, he gave so much this afternoon, but I think the power has disappeared because Antonio Colom has flown around the corner. But what's more important is if you look at the top, you've got 13 kilometres to go and you've got 1 minute and 57, then all of a sudden you realise the main field is starting to pull their way back.
Antonio Colom here, he got a little bit tired, I think, of Chiruca throwing all those punches at him. So he decided to lift the acceleration for as long as he could hold it to crack him. Now he'll settle back down into his own climbing rhythm. Back to the leaders with the yellow jersey. Look at the field behind now. Again, beginning to thin out here. Inigo Cuesta, Frank Schleck's group, by the way, has been dropped. Have you seen Carlos Sastre?
No, Carlos Sastra's in this group here. He's very comfortable. Frank Schleck is in a group 5 minutes behind. While we look here at Jaroslav Popovic, Inigo Cuesta disappearing from the group. He was in the group of his leader, Carlos Sastre, but now his work has been done. And moving a little bit further up, we can see other riders disappearing from the group. This rider here is going to be Moses Duenas Nevada from Agritubel, and also
Kim
going
Kirken.
backwards is Kirken.
And that's more important. He sits in 10th place overall. And Kim has been riding extremely well. Champion of Luxembourg last year. But it looks as though he has unhooked from the train. This is becoming a very, very crucial group.
Well, this is Christian Vande Velde. That's Jens Voigt. Can you imagine that Jens Voigt is still in this group?
No, it must be the second group, because we must have dropped down a group here. As they split away from the field here, they're all going off the back of the leading group now. So too is Karpitz. They are all unhitching now, and it's under the pressure at the front of Rabobank. This is Menchov.
Menchov, followed by Alberto Contador, followed by Michael Rasmussen. Andreas Kloden looking comfortable over to the left-hand side in the pink and black jersey is Cadel Evans. Michael Bogard has done his job, but he doesn't want to give up. He knows that if you're in the yellow jersey, you may need some assistance, so he's going to try and stay there for as long as possible. Now it's Chris Horner's turn to be unhitched.
Chris Horner is showing signs of cracking as we go through the field here. Mayo again, who got back on the descent, is not coming up with the goods at the most crucial stage of the day. Each and every one of the riders are now slipping away. And Harma Zubeldia is the rider in orange here. He also is dropping off, and he was also holding a fairly high place overall. He was 18th in the Tour de France.
Aymar Zubeldia would hope to ride well in the Pyrenees. This is the terrain of Team Euskaltel Euskadi as we move forward to see what sort of damage is being done here. This is Alejandro Valverde, also in difficulty. Don't look at me. Please let me do this in silence. There is Mikel Astrolosa just in front of him, and I wouldn't be surprised to see just a little bit further forward Oscar Pereiro as well.
Well, we're looking here. Don't forget that Astrolosa was dropped on the previous climb. Now he's gone. There's Pereiro, number 11. The 2 top boys on Caisse de Pont look at each other and say, we're in trouble here, because it's all down to Jaroslav Popovic, who was dropped on the previous climb, came back with the drinking bottles, and is now doing George Hincapie's job on the climb.
Carlos Sastre is in this group. He's doing what he's done so well since the start of the Ford, just sitting there. He's in 5th position there, just behind the yellow jersey. Cadel Evans is on the other side of the yellow jersey, riding comfortably, sitting at the back of the group. You can see Levi Leipheimer is very much in contest as well.
2 minutes, don't forget, they're slowly but surely catching the leaders up front. That's not their target. They're trying to set a tempo to break the others. No signs of distress for Rasmussen nor Cadel Evans on the far left.
What about the Jaroslav Popovic? This is Mikel Astrolosa, started the day in 8th place in the overall classification. He wants to try and stay there for Spain if he can, and he's trying to pull himself back into this group. He may well survive, but I reckon Jaroslav Popovic is doing a phenomenal job. There is Levi Leipheimer just at the back. Popovic was dropped on the Porte de Paillere, and all of a sudden he realises we've got a chance to win this stage.
Andries Klöden taking a drink, not looking in any trouble. He's the leader of the team now. He knows it. Watch out for Juan Soler, 219. He doesn't ride very gracefully, but he certainly flies up mountains. He can go with anything, and somebody's accelerated. This is the adjustment. Sastra's got to get on the wheel here. Sastra is dropping to the back.
Well, the first acceleration came from Popovic, and then it was applied by Michael Bogert, who we saw going to the back of the group. Then all of a sudden realising, and it looks as if that acceleration from Michael Bogert has put Denis Menchov into trouble, because Menchov has now popped off the back.
We are down to 10 principal players in the Tour de France on the climb up to the plateau. Menchov, who said he was coming back to form in the time trial, but he would dedicate all of his help to the yellow jersey Rasmussen. That's what he's done. He's paying for the price now. This is Klöden sitting at the back, not looking as cool as he's looked for the last couple of days of this race. Sastra's number 31. Number 11 is Levi Leipheimer. The white jersey is Contador. The pink jersey is Cadel Evans. And this man would worry me.
He would worry me a lot. He said, would you like a drink? My mate said, no. All right, well, let's carry on. This is unbelievable to see this rider doing this.
What's he doing?
He's phenomenal. He's
Anybody
great.
told him he rides for Bolo World, not
Phil,
for...
I tell you what, he's never been in a situation like this. He's never been in a big bike race like this, and he just wanted to share a bottle of water with the yellow jersey. He was trying to show friendship, trying to show camaraderie, but watch it, because when we get to the summit of the climb, he might give him a little dig.
Well, I'll tell you what, that would also work psychologically against Rasmussen. This guy's feeling good, he'll think, and doesn't want his water. Now Valverde getting back here with Pereiro. There's Arroyo trying to get back in, but this is amazing. The Case de Palm team has seemed so strong in the first week, now in all sorts of trouble. Valverde, I think, lost his chance anyway yesterday, but I'm sure he came out today hoping to climb back into the Tour de France standings.
He certainly did. He was riding with courage for Spain, but you can see almost the top end of Case d'Epargne have been blown away here. Oscar Pereiro there, number 11, second overall last year, but David Arroyo, who went off the mountains on one of the Alpine stages, is trying to pace the two leaders back into this race and hope they don't lose too much time before the summit. We're kind of forgetting about the race in front, because the leaders of the race, Antonio Colom, is still 2 minutes ahead of the yellow jersey group.
Still 10 kilometres to climb, though. I think we don't need to put our cameras up there. They'll be coming back to see us here very soon. Maybe 4 kilometres or so from the finish. Michael Bogert in his last Tour de France now, unselfishly tapping out the rhythm for the yellow jersey of Rasmussen.
Well, Andrei Kashekin was in the group as well. We're looking down here at one of the riders. This is Antonio Colom. Great performance on this first day, and a little bit further back you can see here Carlos Barredo. Well, he's just going to survive for a little while to have a chance to look at the yellow jersey group.
He's going to be washed straight away now, but he's in a fine position for a good ride on the day. Michael Bogert, Rasmussen, having his lunch. He's had his drinks. Is Juan Mauricio Soler. Now he's having another drink. That guy's going to win the stage, Paul. That guy in the red spots is all over this race today.
Battling with the machine, he's bouncing around. He doesn't look like the most stylish rider in the group, but he may well be the most efficient once we get towards the summit of this climb. We are still looking at 6 miles to go, 10.4 kilometers, and the yellow jersey group is still 2 minutes behind the leader, Antonio Colom. This is really not very good for Alejandro Valverde, number 18. He came to this race yesterday morning. This man was in second place in the overall standings. This morning he was in 11th place in the overall standings, and if he can't do something special right now, he will drop down to 15th or 16th, and his hopes of taking the Tour de France victory to Spain will be blown completely and utterly out of the window. Jaroslav Popovic now dropped on the Porte de Paillere, has come to the front, and he's trying to set something up for his man in second position there. Alberto Contador now is starting to look rather dangerous. Contador, a major revelation of the early part of this season, was the winner of Paris-Nice, followed by the Trophy Castillo-Leon, and since then he's always been a man to be reckoned with in the mountains.
Just look at this ride now. He's put Contador, I think Discovery have come out today to get the team race, if nothing else, because they've got the men driving at the front. But Astana still have the leader on the road. How long can Popovic do this, Paul, before he does pop?
Well, it doesn't matter to him. He's thinking about the fact, Phil, that Team Discovery Channel or US Postal Service are undefeated on the slopes of this mountain. The race has been here twice before while they've been in existence, in 2002 and 2004. And on those occasions, it was Lance Armstrong who won the race. In 1998, it was Marco Pantani, and I'm sure Popovic is a man who knows his cycling history. Andreas Klöden looks to be suffering a little bit here, Phil, because of his accident yesterday.
I think he is. He's just hanging on here by his skin of his racing shorts, as Solar is also there at the back. Listed a group now, Paul. 8 riders, pure class.
Well, Jaroslav Popovic gets out of the saddle. He will have heard that at the back Andreas Klöden is in difficulty, and he will put the hammer down a little more. Well, we're looking at 1 minute and 55 seconds. They're going to have to do something very special if they want to pull all this back together and actually win the stage. Klöden gets out of the saddle, tries to keep the gears ticking over. He knows he needs to stay here to hold on to his 4th place in the overall classification. Cadel Evans there in the pink jersey, just locked onto the wheel of Michael Rasmussen. Popovic is a man possessed here this afternoon. He's thinking only about his team.
Just looking here, Johan Brunel on the radio just told Popovic that Klöden has been dropped. That's why I don't like the radios, Paul. As we're now seeing Klöden unhitch at the back and Popovic drive that little bit harder. Very shortly, Popovic will be dropped, but he'll have done his job. 10 kilometres to go. We say 9.5.
Well, we say 9.5. They've come through that 10 kilometre to go point, and they're coming again, Phil, to the steeper part of this climb. It's going to kick up again to around about 8.8%. Still, this is turning out to be a very select group of riders. There you can see on the front, Popovic, Contador, Rasmussen, Cadel Evans, Kashakin, all of the big names, and popped in there just on the side there is Levi Leipheimer, still looking very comfortable and still well up there.
Let's get on the radio and tell Popovic Klöden isn't dropped, he's on the back.
Well, you know, Klöden is a strong rider. Don't ever forget he's finished 2nd overall in the Tour de France, and he's a proud man too. He's probably hurting quite a bit because he crashed pretty dramatically in the time trial yesterday, but still managed to finish in 3rd place.
Well, I thought they dropped team time trialing from the Tour de France, but we've got one going on at the back there. And now this is the poise for the moment. Wait for the attack. His Contador is poised here. He's swung right. Rasmussen's looking around for reaction. Cadel Evans doesn't need to react yet. This is the first time, but it looks to me as though Rasmussen is being isolated now. Now it's showdown time at 9 kilometres to go, and Klöden is in the red zone once more.
And I tell you what, Alberto Contador is having a bit of a hard time trying to follow the pace being set by his own teammate, because he too is getting unhitched with Carlos Sastre.
You know, we always say it, but the Pyrenees are different to the Alps. Bodies always react differently. Levi Leipheimer says the Pyrenees is where I'm going to go. And he's in that little group now. They've got Klöden in difficulty, but he refuses to be finished off.
Well, he will not give up. He'll fight his way back into this race as much as he can. He started the day in 4th place in the overall classification, but what a performance that's being done there by the man at the front, Jaroslav Popovic. And I tell you what, Alberto Contador has come back into the group as well.
Well, Popovic is doing the ride of his life. The man who was dropped on the previous mountain came back and is now doing the job of a super domestique and still hanging on there. He's just hanging in, is Andreas Klöden. Even the greatest athletes suffer like they've never suffered before when they ride in the Tour de France.
It's important today to stay in contact. If he eases now, he'll lose himself a couple of minutes before the summit of this climb. Contador looked in difficulty, so too did Carlos Sastre, but again the gradient changed and smiled on those 2 riders at the back from Spain, and they were able to pull themselves back into this group. Nobody, though, so far, Phil, has shown any sign of worry to the man in the yellow jersey, Michael Rasmussen, who just sits there and says, OK, guys, you just get on with it.
It's up to Rasmussen to attack. This is a mountain day ticked off and no time gains. He's got to go, otherwise Cadel is going to eat him alive on Saturday. Let me just tell you, up ahead, we haven't forgotten about the riders. Collum is still on his own. He leads by nearly a minute over Shuruka and a minute 15 over Gutierrez. And then we come back to this group we're looking at now at 1:38.
Well, everybody now is concentrating Rasmussen is wondering, is anybody going to try and attack me here, or are they just going to try and wear me down? He just sits there looking over his shoulder. He's listening to see if he can hear the whistle of the tyres as somebody tries to attack. Kashakin is over there on the left-hand side, and he started the day in 6th place in the overall classification.
Just looking down the list here as we move towards the top, we've got just on 8 kilometers to go, and about 5 miles to go to the finish. This isn't Cloden, this is the leader now on the front, and he's still trying to ride away with it. You see, Astana are still taking something from this Tour de France without their team captain.
Well, we saw when they came into the start of this Tour, Phil, that they were a strong team. We saw them in the Dauphiné Libéré 2 weeks before the start of this race, and we knew that they were going to be a team to be reckoned with. This is Chiruka. He's the chaser on the road, and he is struggling to stay in contact with the lone leader. And I have him down at around about 1 minute and 15 seconds. Jose Ivan Gutierrez is a little bit further back, but there is the yellow jersey group right on his tail.
Yes, Gutierrez is the next to go. That leaves 2 men up front here as the motorbikes take their turn to get through. There's Cloden still trying to hold them in sight, just fighting now to limit his losses here as the pressure goes on again. I would say that the boys in that little cluster, from that cluster comes the winner of the Tour de France on Sunday week.
I don't think anybody's going to criticise you with a remark like that, because certainly they are proving to be the strongest men in the Tour here this afternoon. Denny Menchov has been a strong man, but he was a strong man for Michael Rasmussen. Rasmussen has not showed any signs at all of weakness, but Team Case d'Epargne here this afternoon with Alejandro Valverde and Oscar Pereiro have been blown out of the bike race. They are losing currently 1 minute on the yellow jersey group.
Well, if looks can speak, that's told us everything here. This man is in trouble, Valverde. Rasmussen is not in trouble. He's cool, he's riding like a great climber, but what is happening, and there was a little switch there with Carlos Sastre. What I'm trying to say, Popovic has gone. Well, what a ride he's done. He'll be slapped on the back, and now it's a move by Levi to stretch him, and look who's going. Maurizio Sola straight on the wheel, the man I believe will win the stage today, and he's marked by the yellow jersey.
Well, he accelerated immediately. Great job of work by 118 Jaroslav Popovic, but the sad thing is you work hard like that. Contador's gone.
It's the old Discovery 1-2. Levi goes, Contador takes up the gritting of the face by Carlos Sastre, who looked to be in trouble, but he's gone. Rasmussen's answered, Cadel Evans is answered. 4 men going clear.
And Juan Maurizio Soler was grappling himself back up to the tail of these riders. Cloden now has no way at all of responding to these accelerations. Kashakin has gone too.
This, Paul, is a race of great cyclists who are throwing everything at one another here. And now they've caught, is that Chiruka they've just gone by?
They've just gone by Gutierrez very rapidly. They've just caught Chiruka. He's out of the back. There's only 1 man in front of this group. Contador looking nervous, wants to get a lone lead if he can. He'll keep accelerating.
Yep. No, he's gone. Contador's react here. Now they've got to come. The yellow jersey is looking for time. Cadel Evans rocks and rolls. He's straight across the gap. They're splitting the 6 now. Evans joins on. Contador looking with the inside of the corner. Rasmussen knows he's got to get time.
He has to get time on everybody, and now we're looking a little bit further back. Jose Ivan Gutierrez was in the breakaway a little while ago. Now he's gone straight out of the back. This is Andrei Kashakin. He was looking comfortable a few moments ago, but now his foundations have been cracked.
When did we last see a stage of the Tour in the mountains like this? As now the rider, there's Paulo Chiruka, doesn't know what the heck came past him. And it's the rider in the yellow jersey now, and Contador has mastered him. Cadel Evans is hurting, but he's hanging.
Well, he's pulling back every time the acceleration comes from Michael Rasmussen, but Rasmussen cannot get rid of the man in the white jersey, Alberto Contador. Contador is a great climber, a man who knows just how to accelerate. But a man with experience is the man who wears number 31. Carlos Sastre has seen this before. He's been here on many, many occasions, and he just lets them carry on with it and pulls himself back into the race with Levi Leipheimer and Soler.
Well, wait for the next attack from Rasmussen. This is how climbers work it here. They've eased because it didn't work, then they'll raise the acceleration again. He's lifted the tempo once more, and the second time sometimes kills them off. Contador is there. Now Rasmussen looks again. This is like a sprint on the track. They're watching each other. Rasmussen just rests. Contador still in control. So too is Evans. Leipheimer's back in. And the Colombian here would like some water. I'm not sure he's allowed anymore now.
Not allowed to take drinks on board at this stage of the game. We're looking at 6.8 kilometers to go. This man, number 219, Juan Mauricio Soler, Phil, is in all kinds of agony. He probably can't believe that he's battling it out at the stage of a Tour de France like this with the big men who are right up in the overall classification.
Well, it's going to be a high finisher in Paris if he keeps this riding up. He's 22nd at the moment. There's the list of the 6 riders. Add on the name of Soler down there as well. And there it is. Well, a tremendous ride. The USA flag for Levi Leipheimer almost blocking out a view of the summit of the plateau.
Well, this is Kloden and Andre Kashakin, and Levi Leipheimer could be making a pretty good operation here this afternoon because he started the day behind Kloden in the overall standings by around about 1 minute and 3 seconds. If he gets to the top, that much ahead of him. Now there's the move by your man Soler.
Soler has gone. They may not react yet after him because he is just a carrot and has he can't get yellow tonight. They're still watching each other. He sits 20 seconds, nearly 11 minutes behind Rasmussen, and that's why he may win the day. But no, Rasmussen's after him, ripping away, followed by Contador, and Evans, the limpet, is on the back.
Well, Cadel Evans cannot give these guys any gap at all. Rasmussen wants the stage here this afternoon, Phil. He wants to win in the mountains. Soler is pouring water all over himself, trying to calm and cool down those muscles of his, while Leipheimer has to respond. He really is gangly on a bike.
Well, he's terrible style. It reminds me of Robert Alban of years gone by. You know well as your teammate, Paul. He's slowed down now. They're all marking each other again. They'll let Levi back into the action. And now they'll wait and attack again. Sastre got back.
Well, this is amazing. This really is a battle of climbers. The acceleration, deceleration, I've rarely seen this kind of a battle before. But there you can see they're all waiting now for the next man to move.
It is absolutely incredible. 5, 6 of the greatest climbers. Nobody can break anybody. They're all launching attacks. When they realise they've been countered, they all slow down. If Kloden can keep stuff, and here he goes again. Now this time he may have it. Where is he finding the strength from?
Well, you know what? They do not really need to chase that man Soler because he's so far down in the overall classification. But it's Contador who wants the victory this afternoon. He says, no, mate, I want the win. And Leipheimer does not have the ability now to lift it up. And Alberto Contador has seen that he's not got the gap. And he says, come on, you guys want to win the stage, you go. So Rasmussen says, all right, I will.
And Sastre looks to be hanging at the back now as they continue to go. But Rasmussen comes up on Juan Mauricio Soler. The others behind are still hanging, but now Rasmussen this time tries to put it on. They've got Soler on the defensive. He needs half a kilometre to recover. He'll just have to hang there and wait and hope that they slow down again.
Well, you know what? When Barlow World were given a wild card selection into the Tour de France, I don't think the organisation...
They slowed down again. He's coming back.
I don't think the organisation knew, Phil, that they were going to get such a battle from that team. Robbie Hunter has taken a stage victory. Soler has taken a stage victory, but he's an integral part of the Battle of the Pyrenees this afternoon.
Well, there they are, 5, and very shortly it will be 6 because Leipheimer is climbing back into the picture. He sits 5th overall if they keep on doing that. And there goes Contador. The yellow jersey this time says to Cadel Evans, well, you chase him. He's only just behind you overall. Now there's a state of confusion.
Well, Contador, look at this. He's out of the saddle. He knows now that he's got the gap. This is what he wanted a couple of days ago when we were in the Alps. He wanted to fly free and get himself a lone lead on the way up to the climb of Tignes. And now it's up to Rasmussen. He says, I know you're dangerous, Contador. I'm coming after you. And Evans again struggling to stay on the wheel. And Leipheimer, Phil, almost got himself back into contention with those riders, but then he goes again.
Well, it's a big gamble by Evans. He's 1 minute 31 ahead of Contador in the standings. He can afford to let him run a little bit, and it's not the case for Rasmussen, so he's had to react. And so the first 3 riders on the classification in the Tour de France are now the first 3 riders, and Evans, I think, has cracked.
Well, he's cracked a bit. He doesn't want to push himself too much into the red zone. He cannot take the accelerations of these two climbers. Alberto Contador and Michael Rasmussen have thrown caution to the wind, and they are going at this as if it's the last battle of the Tour de France here this afternoon. So Evans now bows his head a fraction. What he's got to do, Phil, is try and recover somehow.
And
try and get himself into a situation where he can actually ride himself into his rhythm and not lose any more time.
Now, advantage Rasmussen. He's got to keep on working. He fears Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans can beat him in the time trial. He needs second. I think he needs about 3 or 4 minutes before we leave the Pyrenees over Cadel. So he's going to have to go again very shortly. But that acceleration's hurt just about everyone.
It's hurt absolutely everyone. We've kind of forgot the Tête de la Course, the front end of the bike race. Antonio Colom is now, Phil, not looking at a massive gap. He's got 30 seconds over these two riders, Michael Rasmussen and Alberto Contador. This is a magnificent battle of the climbers. We talked about the Tour de France on the flat stages. We've got so many sprinters in it. I don't think we've ever seen so many climbers over the last few years.
We had nothing like this in the Alps. We got it in the Pyrenees. They've been waiting for what is a most difficult stretch of riding now. We get a rest day in between 3 awful days in the mountains. 2 still to come. Just around that corner now has gone the race leader. These two are chasing him.
Well, what you say there, Phil, is completely true. They're fighting this out as if it's the last mountain stage at 5 kilometres to go. Do these men not know there's a monster stage tomorrow?
They've had no choice. They're scared of what Evans can do in the time trial. 5 kilometres to go. 5 kilometres still to go for the leader. And they've thrown just about everything they've got at each other.
This is unbelievable. Antonio Colom had around about 3 minutes advantage at the start of the climb. Valverde's losing huge chunks this afternoon. So too is Andreas Kloden, but the yellow jersey group with Alberto Contador, the best young rider in this race, is only 30 seconds. Well, in fact, it's less than that. It's 23 seconds at 3 miles to go.
Well, will they catch him? Because these two have had to slow just a little bit. They've started shadow boxing again. Rasmussen is waiting till he senses the younger rider in white is hitting the pace, and he'll hit him again. Here comes the chase group. Evans is on the front of it, and they are 44 seconds off the leader.
Well, Cadel Evans is now finding his own rhythm. He's hurting himself. He's got to ride a time trial. He rode a very hard time trial yesterday and got himself second place. He knows he won't get any help from the other guys. He has got to ride for his position in the overall classification. He started the day in second, and Carlos Sastra's seen the weakness.
Well, those 4 need time to recover, while these 2 are trying to get up to the leader now. And they've all attacked, in fact, Cadel Evans, and he's going to have to fight to stay in touch. Evans now, for the first time in this year's Tour, is in trouble. And Kloden still has a little help with Kashikin down the back, but they are much further down the road now.
Well, everybody is pretty much on the defensive. Cadel Evans was attacked. He was doing all of the pace-making to try and pull himself back into this race. His team manager now must try and calm him down. Don't panic, my son. Get yourself into a rhythm. Just ride yourself over these last 4.5 kilometres, because if he tries to follow these accelerations now, Phil, he could see that gap of seconds turning into minutes.
Yes, limit your losses. There's plenty of more mountains still to come. And he's not going to lose huge time, providing he doesn't completely hit the wall. Look at this, Rasmussen even encouraging Contador here, because Contador is looking for second place in the Tour right now. And Rasmussen is keeping all of his gains over Contador, which at the moment is 2 minutes and 31 seconds.
Well, Mr. Gangly at the back here, Juan Mauricio Soler is all over the back of Levi Leipheimer. Leipheimer looks very comfortable. He doesn't look under any stress at all, but he just cannot respond to the accelerations of the climbers. Carlos Sastre started the day in 7th place overall. He too could see himself climb up in the overall classification. How many times have we seen that face over the years?
Well, the perspiration running off these riders' faces are like waterfalls today. Coming up to the 5 kilometres banner, that's for the Valverde group. They're a long way back. We're heading up to 4 kilometres, and the count on 4 kilometres now. This is Colom coming through. He'll see the 4 kilometres and still surviving, but how much longer? Because they're right on his back wheel here.
Well, there they are, just around the corner. He won't have very much more than a 10-second advantage at 4 kilometres to go. And when he sees the yellow jersey and the white jersey, Phil, he will be a broken man. But for these two riders, they're riding away from the rest of the field in the Tour de France this afternoon. And I think the man we're looking at here, 1-1-2, he might not win the Tour de France this year, but next year or the year after, he's going to be right on the top step of the podium.
Well, if he rides like this, he might win it this year yet. He's not a rival right now. He's just sort of encouraging each other here. It's two men against the rest, and then they'll decide later whether they have to fight it out between themselves. We're going back down the road here to the Evans group now, and Leipheimer won't help because he's got a teammate in Contador ahead.
Carlos Sastre, he's known glory in the Pyrenees before. Looking over his shoulder, he flicks his wrist there to say, come and work with me, but he's not going to get any help at all from Levi Leipheimer.
Well, pretty fit athlete there as we go down, back up to the front here, as we see the yellow jersey and the white jersey, the best rookie and the leader of the Tour. Just getting into their sights now, the hero of the day, Antonio Colom, isn't going to see the plateau on his own. The two principal players are right up on him.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal the way Alberto Contador rides. He's the man who showed the most aggression here, but the yellow jersey, he knows that if he wants to win this Tour, Phil, every time and every stage that goes uphill, he's got to build on his advantage, because he will not win the final time trial. He will lose huge chunks of time. Contador now comes up and sets the pace-making, but I wonder how much longer number 192, Antonio Colom, can stay in contact with these two men.
Well, yes, and let's hope he can, but it's unlikely that he can hold them just for a while. He might get third on the stage as we head up into the last 3 kilometres now. That's about 2 miles still to ride, and Contador has been absolutely brilliant today. The crowd have had his name all over the road here, so they're expecting this. He had it planned.
Well, he knew that this was a climb that would suit him. He knew that he had the acceleration on the steeper slopes there. There's a bit of a gap going down to the next group on the road, and there it is. That's Carlos Sastre, Levi Leipheimer, and Juan Mauricio Soler. They are looking at around about 25 seconds. Cadel Evans at 45.
Cadel is going to have to make that up. He's not writing himself out of the Tour de France today, but this first day in the Pyrenees has been mano a mano, and Cadel tried and tried, and they cracked him. At 3 kilometres to go now, we've got 2 leaders, and they haven't attacked each other since they got clear.
Well, they're coming to the slightly easier slope, if you can have an easy slope after 15 kilometres of climbing. Here, the gradient slips into just 7%. The final kilometre is at 6.3%, so we're going to be treated to a big battle between what I feel this year, Phil, are the 2 top climbers of the Tour de France.
There are small time bonuses, as there are every day, for the first 3, 20 seconds for the winner, and that's for that reason they can't share the win. They've got to fight for it. 20 seconds for first, 12 seconds for second, and I think it's 8 seconds for third.
That's an important thing to remember for these two riders, but Michael Rasmussen now, he's not got to think about winning the stage anymore, Phil, because he has to think about time. Every time this race goes uphill, he's got to think about the time he puts between himself and Cadel Evans and Andreas Klöden, because those men are great individual time trialists. No worry at all, says Alberto Contador. I've still got plenty of fire in these legs of mine. The Spanish supporters are all behind me. Cadel Evans at 3 kilometres to go has lost himself almost a minute, and he could be losing his second place overall.
Well, he's got to lose 1:31 is what he's got to lose, but there is that small bonus. He's very close to slipping a place here. Temporary hiccup, I think, but we'll see. The Danish flags are flying, and the Danish man is the one in yellow.
Well, it's getting a bit precarious here. The fans are getting a little bit too close. But for Alberto Contador, he's thinking about victory on the stage and climbing up into second place in the overall classification. At around about 1.5 kilometres to go, they will start to feel safe. They'll get into the barriered part of the course. The Contador, Phil, looks just so easy. He's out of the saddle. He's dancing on the pedals, as you would say, with an incredible amount of ease. Further back, Cadel Evans is struggling. He's using a much bigger gear. He's trying to find a rhythm, which is just not comfortable enough for him to find.
And Cadel wants to finish now, and he wants it as fast as it will come to him. He needs a recuperation. He's done for the day. These boys have slowed a little bit, but Rasmussen said something to Contador. I think he says, you do the work, and Contador says, no, why me? you do the work. They shouldn't be arguing like this. And Rasmussen really must make Contador work too. Otherwise, there they are. There's that discussion. And goodness knows what language is in, because Contador only speaks Spanish.
Well, he speaks a little bit of English, a bit of confusion now as they go through. Just listen to the crowds. It's almost deafening, the tunnel of noise that these riders are going through. And I think that Alberto Contador, Phil, actually feels that Cadel Evans is now being picked up here by Andreas Klöden. So Cadel Evans is actually showing his first sign of weakness on the 14th stage of the Tour de France. We've never seen him show any sign of weakness at all since we left London.
Well, there's 2 more days of mountains, and I have to tell you, they are harder than this day. But this day has been a big sort-out on the climb of the Plateau de Baille. An acceleration by Rasmussen, and Contador's on him at 2 kilometres.
That's what it was all about, that discussion. Alberto Contador is not happy with Michael Rasmussen. He's saying to him, if you want to win the stage, mate, you go to the front. You've got to get the time. I'm going to sit here because I want to win the stage for Discovery Channel, and I want to win the stage for Spain.
Well, those motorbikes, thankfully, have now been pushed away here. We should get a true sprint, but Rasmussen, he wants Contador to come through. I'm not sure Contador will here.
He keeps flicking his shoulder there, his arm. He says, come on, keep working with me. But I think they've lost the fraternity that they had when they set up this move going clear. I'm not sure that Alberto Contador is very happy at all with Michael Rasmussen, and he's going to sit there because he knows in the back of his mind he starts the day 2.5 minutes behind Michael Rasmussen. He knows Michael Rasmussen needs time, so he's going to force the Dane to do all of the pacemaking.
Well, watch out, because these 3 might claw away. There he goes up on the inside. There'll be no acceleration. The other 2 are fully committed, and this man could take advantage of the slowing of the 2 riders at the front. It'll have to be pretty special, I think, even for him. But he's off again, because at the moment he's losing his lead he gained earlier in the King of the Mountains. It's going back to Rasmussen.
This is a man who's come to the Tour de France for the first time ever. He's never seen these mountains before, Phil, but he's absolutely not afraid of them in one little bit. Cadel Evans is 1 minute and 20 seconds down at 1 kilometre to go to the finish, so he looks as if he's going to lose his 2nd place in the overall classification to the man lying in 2nd place there. But this man, as you said earlier, Phil, might spoil the party for the stage victory.
If he can get up there, he might confuse them. Here's Cadel, a bit lower down the slopes. He's cracked at 1.2 kilometres here. He probably, with the bonuses, at least will lose, for the moment at least, 2nd place overall. He's now with Andreas Klöden and Kashikin. And what on earth has happened to Vinokurov now? Washed away, I would think, because this has been a dual battle with everybody else out of it. There is 1 kilometre to go. Contador refuses to help the Maillot Jaune. The Maillot Jaune has got to work because he wants time.
Well, for the Maillot Jaune, Michael Rasmussen, he must ride as hard as he can to get time over everybody else in this race, because he will not ride a final time trial like the time trial he rode yesterday. Alberto Contador knows this. He's riding like a tough poker player, saying, mate, you want to win the Tour de France? Well, I want to win this stage, so you go and get as much time as you can. We are looking, Phil, at only about 20 seconds to this man who is currently in 3rd place on the road. Juan Mauricio Soler. Yes, he does remind me of Robert Alban, a man who was my teammate in the La Redoute days in the 1980s. He cannot look good on a bike, but I tell you what, when it goes to going uphill, he knows how to do that.
Well, can he catch those 2? If they slow down to he gets ready for the finish, he'll be on them and he'll steal the stage. But at the moment, Rasmussen is committed. He's no choice. He's racing for time gains, particularly on Cadel Evans. So he, in effect, is having to give the stage away here to Alberto Contador. But this first day in the Pyrenees has shown us Rasmussen is a pretty solid leader of the Tour de France.
He's also learning the hard way, Phil, that when you've got the yellow jersey on your shoulders, when it comes down to decision time, you don't have any friends at all. You've got to assume control yourself. You've got to prove that you are a great champion, and that's why he has to do all of the work. 500 metres to go, and Alberto Contador is getting ready for the explosion that he hopes is going to give him the victory of the stage.
Well, Alberto Contador, the man that had the serious accident which almost cost him his life, is now looking set to get the victory.
Well, this has been a certain amount of damage for everybody here this afternoon. This is Carlos Sastre. He started the day in 7th place. He's now been left behind, and Michael Rasmussen is accelerating inside of the final 400 metres. There on his wheel, there's Alberto Contador. Contador wants the stage victory if he can, but he's going to have to do something special. Michael Rasmussen here has got the acceleration, and Contador comes up alongside him. The young man from Spain who wants the victory here this afternoon. He knows this finish. He came and looked at it very early on in the year, but Alberto Contador has got the victory that he wanted ahead of Michael Rasmussen. He wanted this win this afternoon, and he's got it ahead of the yellow jersey, and he may well have got himself 2nd place in the overall classification as well. Hats off to this man, though. Juan Maurizio Soler has come up to the line, and what a great ride by him. He wants a few more points in that King of the Mountains classification and crosses the line in 3rd. Levi Leipheimer is 4th, and now it's all a question of the clock, because next on the road is going to be Carlos Sastre. 36 kilometres the stage. That's not bad for a big mountain stage here this afternoon, because there we have Carlos Sastre in 5th.
These two are the losers today. Cadel Evans coming up with Andreas Kloden, and we'll look for the clock to see what it says on the clock. 1:17 is gone, and there he is already on the phone to his folks. I just won a stage of the Tour de France. I'm now 2nd overall in the race.
Well, Andreas Kloden today was also put into difficulty, and I think, Phil, because of that crash he had in the individual time trial yesterday. Cadel Evans too rode a brilliant individual time trial. That will have hurt his body as he makes his way up to the finish line. I don't think he'll try and come round Kloden here. He's happy to get to the top there. The clock stops for him at 1:52.